Okay. Hi, you guys. Welcome to another episode of I Really Love Myself. And I have a really special guest today, which is like one of my soulmate coaches. Um, this is a woman who I'm really excited to have on today. We're gonna have a really interesting conversation about relationships and business and because like if you guys know me at this point, like you know that I'm very ambitious and I love my business and I love my work. And a lot of my clients are that way too. And there's a huge intersection between how our relationships impact our sense of purpose and our drive and vice versa. So we're going to be diving in, and Taylor, who I have on today, she is someone who I like honestly, I probably paid the most money to this woman out of any coach in the world. I'm like worth every penny.
Oh,
um yeah, and Taylor's really helped me like so much and changed my life a lot in the work that we've done together on and off since like maybe 2016. So yeah, anyways.
crazy. I know. It's
Yeah.
like chatting with a whole new version of you today than like even a handful of years ago.
Yeah. And
It's been so cool.
I know. And I love how we like have kind of come up together in like the coaching space and just like
Yeah,
got to stay connected over the years and like see so
me
many like
too.
personal changes and yeah, and like one thing too that I will say is like other people's changes like in our community around us and
Yeah.
like maybe where relationships play a role in that, maybe not. But anyways, Taylor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be here today and chat, and thank you for that introduction.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fun one. I have built my business in the last decade, really. I've made almost $6 million now. And also, alongside of that, when I first started online, I was dating my now husband, and we've just like, he's been with me through the whole thing. And that's not my thing. I don't coach on relationships or love or anything like that. Of course, I get the scoop from all of my clients because it's
Mhm.
so intertwined. And a lot of my clients do tend to be in really serious relationships or married just because I don't know, it's just how it happens.
Mhm.
And when I started my business, I mean, I was dating my now husband, no kids, and then now I have three kids, which is quite a
Yeah.
lot, honestly. Um, so I'm excited to like chat about it because I normally don't, and I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. Like so many questions to dive into. Um, okay, so what I will say, like what I have to say is that like, I'm a big believer personally that women have like are healthier in relationships when they have like a sense of purpose outside of the relationship that's like theirs, which doesn't have to
Hmm.
be a business, but like for me it's a business. I feel like for you it's a business or at least one of your things, one of my things. Um and like, I just feel like something too, when it's like, when people are working on their business, it's like, when they're like going through a breakup, or it's like they're wanting their partner to propose, or they're like getting married, or they're starting to have babies, or like, or even worse, like the worst case scenario, like you're in a toxic relationship or like a toxic marriage where there's like,
Yeah.
substance abuse or like physical abuse or emotional abuse, or just being with someone who just like doesn't get it or isn't supportive, or, I just feel like there's so much like intersection of how the wrong relationship can really start to just like distract you and like I don't know and I would love to hear from you on just like anything that you feel called to like focus in on because there's a lot of I kind of have a lot here that I just threw out here but but
I mean, I love
yeah.
that you talk about that so often because I feel the same way with business too, where it's like for me now having things outside of business that are like because like yeah, I'm very ambitious. I love my business. I love working. and I love growing my business. Like I like having
Hmm.
goals but also like my business pays all the bills and that naturally comes with pressure and being the breadwinner and having a whole family and mortgage and all the things now. Like it's so different.
Hmm.
But even having something that's just like fun outside of that, that's also like growth oriented, where I'm like learning and be like, um, it could be like working out or a sport, or for me, it's like the horseback riding right now. And like,
Love that.
it's so connected because there's so many moments where I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? This is so impossible. This is so difficult, like with my
Hmm.
horse. And then like
Yeah.
something will click and it's just so like effortless and easy. And it's just, there's been so many like lessons for me in business and that. But I totally agree because I've seen so many people close to me where that relationship is like their everything. And when it's off or when it falls apart or whatever, it's like debilitating. And it's hard to hold space for like I don't know. I think that's the really cool thing about life. I think we're meant to be able to hold space for lots of things. I think a lot of people think that that's not possible. I think it's
Yeah.
important, and not have
Yeah.
like one thing that's your whole world and livelihood and have many things that can like support you, be a
Yeah.
distraction, be fun, be life-giving, like whatever they are, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I I love that, and I it's funny because it's like I've been on the other end of that with clients so much where it's like they're not necessarily like a coach or an online business owner, but they like have something going on like a business, or they have like a demanding job of some kind, and like they'll go through a breakup and they're like I can't work, like I feel like I can't
Yeah.
work, and like they're in bed and having a hard time just like feeling motivated, and like it affects their income sometimes, right, for
Yeah.
a little bit. And I just think that it's so I mean, and I know you don't claim to be like an expert on these things or anything like that, but um, I will say, like, I'm curious from your perspective, just like people that you've worked with over the years, like, have you seen, from your perspective of like people who seem to be like a bit more codependent, like in their relationships, like, how have you seen that like impact their ability to just like run a successful business or like really stay in the game or like kind of feel really negatively impacted when something comes up with their relationship in a way, Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty open book. So
Hmm.
I'll even use myself in this example, but one of the biggest differences I've seen with like people who've maybe been more codependent on their partner is it's such a direct reflection to their confidence. It's like if their relationship is good, they're showing up and they're high vibe and they're excited and they have goals. And then like if the relationship is off, and it could be like it's off, they're getting cheated on, there's like abuse, there's like it could be that off, but it could also just be like he poked fun at my post today or something. Like, do you know what I mean? Or like,
Rude.
yeah, like
Boo.
which I'm not saying is good, but like a little less extreme.
Yeah.
But like it's just like everything is like tanked. It's like,
Yeah.
and especially when it go, I don't know. I think one benefit to my personality for me is like I I kind of do well. Like I kind of need someone hating on me. Like so I do well when I get like a comment like that. I'm like, okay, yeah,
Me
fuck you. I'll
too.
show you. And like I would be lying if I said in the beginning, like there was definitely dynamics in our relationship when we were dating. And they've crept up in marriage too, but like when we were dating, we're like I think I was doing like a lot of emasculating, and then I think like he was did not understand what I was doing and did not really believe in it. Not that he didn't believe in me, but he was like, "What is this?" And like all these people are scam artists and what's going on and like whatever. And so for me at the time, I was like, okay, like watch me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And but I think I didn't know what we had in store for our future at that time. And I was like, I wanted to be with him, but I was also like detached from it too. Like, okay, if you're gonna keep being an asshole about it, whatever, like this won't last that
Yeah.
long. Um, Also it is a weird industry and it is a weird kind of business. So like, and I am making no money in it and I am spending a lot of money in it and a lot of time.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll prove you wrong and then you'll get it. Or whatever the case may be, like, and we were just dating at the time, so maybe it was a bit easier. But our last lives were pretty intertwined, like living together, like paying bills together, like all the things. But
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
me, I'm glad
no,
I
I love
haven't let
that.
that like affect my confidence too much, you know?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like one thing that I will say that you said that I feel the same way where, like I think any ambitious person like can have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder of like, watch me, like I'll prove you wrong. Like I like not gonna lie, like this is gonna be so funny, but like and maybe a little messy, but like shout out to my ex. Because like there was one time in our relationship where like I was like in debt and like like my I was like in my head about work and like and business and whatever. And he was like, and he just like had said something to me one day that like made me feel just really like not believed in. And then I got mad and I paid off that debt like in like 8 weeks. you
And
know?
that's the value in healing yourself.
Yeah. But I will say though, like, it's so like I love that. And also like, it's something that you said that I feel and that I think is a part of like a healthy mindset for a woman in business that like is in relationships and like wants to feel supported by her partner and also feels influenced by the relationship. Like, being able to have like a healthy detachment like from your partner. And that can be
Yeah.
so hard for some people to do where it's like where it's like you have this like individuation, like this individual like sense of self where it's like, okay, like I can believe in myself and like feel good about myself and like have my own vision and like know who I am and know what I'm about, like even if this other person doesn't or like doesn't get it or like, and I know just from how long we've known each other and things that you've shared where it's like with Frankie, like your husband, it sounds like you guys have grown a lot over the years together. And it's like he's gotten to like at first it was kind of like I don't get it, but now it's like, girl, I'm gonna let you do your thing. Like I know you got this. Like and
Yeah.
I love that evolution. And I think that it's like, there I had a bit of that in my last relationship where it was like, I don't get it. Like what the hell? What the helly is my thing that I've been saying because I heard it on TikTok. What the helly? Like, it's so funny. But anyways, um, and then it was like, okay, like, you do your thing a little bit, but still, I don't know. And like I'm in a relationship now with someone who's like just as like ambitious and like and
Yeah.
mostly gets it, like and doesn't necessarily get the ins and outs of my industry, but like gets the ambitious creative thing and like and has its own version of that going on and like expands me, but it's like and I like used to really want that, but it comes with like different things where it's like all right, we're both like doing a lot and like time and
Yeah.
energy management now. So it's like
Yeah.
um but yeah, I mean it's totally a thing. Like I mean, okay. So I'm curious because it's like something that like I feel like I've heard a lot about and like especially in the conversation of like feminine energy, which I'm all about. But um where it's like when like what do you think? And this is like one of the things that I was just like would like really wanted to hear your take on, but is like I feel like sometimes in the conversation where it's like women want to feel more in their feminine energy and they can feel very like driven and ambitious like in their day-to-day life like with their work and their career and their business or businesses and then it's like feeling like this disconnect from being able to feel like feminine in their marriage or their dating life or their relationship space and then feeling um, and then maybe kind of struggling with being like a bit emasculating to their partner or like because I feel like with my higher earning clients, it's like sometimes they're like I feel like I'm just like dragging this man along sometimes and like, I'm like making so much more money and I think that there's like definitely nuance to this conversation, but I think for a lot of higher earning women, it can be like scary to think about being the earner with all the pressure on your plate and especially like if you take on like more labor around the home more like with the kids if you have them or like just like not wanting to feel like overextended because I just feel like for a lot of women unconsciously we're so used to call it patriarchy or whatever, but it's like we're so used to just like being willing to be the one to take on the energy hit and like the burden more so of things than maybe being quick to be like, oh, it's all you, you got it, right? Like we're so used to overextending ourselves. And I'm just really curious, like how, like your take on that, how you've seen that play out, like with clients before, and just like what you think women need to be able to do to not fall into that.
I mean, this has been like a conversation that I've had more and more with like retiring Frankie. And I say it like that because really where we're at is like we're just in a really interesting phase of life where like my business blew up. I had a lot of overflow and then we had three tiny babies back to back. So it's like it works really well for us to both be here. I would say I don't think that's like the most ideal situation for him actually. Like he's
Yeah.
not that he's not thriving, but it's not like yeah, I'm just gonna like chill in the living room all day with the kids. Like I feel like so in my purpose and thriving in life. Like that's not really it. And but it has been really cool, like having him like he's built so much stuff on the property and like I feel it feels very like legacy feeling to me where I'm like, wow, our kids are gonna know that like you literally built that with your hands. Like, do you know what I mean? And like
Hmm.
you like took care of all of this and like quite frankly, yes, I've made it possible financially, but like I'm like if I had like most of these husbands, like it doesn't matter how much money I would be making, like some of this stuff just like literally would not be possible. However,
Hmm.
I will say like when we first moved here and to give context, like we bought this really beautiful house and it also has 10 acres of land and now we have this little like farm situation going on, you could call it. Um and so there's just like a lot of like labor involved in that and like maintenance and things like that. Anyway, like when we first moved here, like the whole barn was like they didn't even include that in like the picture. We didn't even know there was a barn until we came and saw it because it was like in not usable. It was like
Yeah.
completely garbage. Like all the fencing here needed to be replaced. Anyway, it's a lot of work.
Hmm.
And so at first, I noticed myself really slip into this like controlling energy. And then also while he was navigating, like, am I happy doing this? Like, am I contributing enough? Like, and then meanwhile, I'm like, why did this not get done? Why did this not get done? When are you going to do this? What did you do today? Like, very like managing role.
Hmm.
And I will say, like, that was the thing that I really didn't expect was like our first year in this dynamic, which was in 2020, I guess mid 2021 to mid 2022, was really hard.
Yeah.
Like, really hard. Like, I was like, did we make a mistake? Like, it was like, this is not going to work. Like, definitely
Hmm.
it can't stay like this. So, what I had to do, because I do think Frankie is like unicorn husband in so many ways. And
Hmm.
his love language, I believe, is acts of service, which is like, I highly recommend personally in a
Plus
partner.
you're a
Just,
Taurus, right? Like I feel
yeah.
like that's
Like, to
like
me, I'm like, I don't know how people have husbands who aren't acts of service. Like, that's the way to go.
yeah.
But like, he's very like willing, like, to do whatever and he does really try to anticipate my needs. My thing was like I wasn't allowing it. And I know for like I've had people literally tell me like I could never do that like or they have. They're like all my husband would do is just like play video games all day. And I'm
Oh
like okay, well
no.
that's
Yeah.
a whole different conversation. But I did have to go okay, I had to like literally I mean I was like making him to-do lists and stuff, which
Yeah.
apparently is a no-no when you're married. Like I learned that I had to learn that the hard way. Don't
Yeah.
you're not supposed to have to do that.
Hmm.
And men tend to not like it. I
Yeah.
had to like
Yeah.
fully cut myself off. Like I'm
Hmm.
not going to tell him what to do. I'm not going to ask him how it's going. And I'm not going to be a control freak about the projects he is doing. Because I was like, what's it going to look like? What color is it going to be? Are you going to do this thing? Are you like, and that was really hard for me too. Because I'm like, well, it's my home and it's my property and it's my money. Like I want it to look how I want it to look. And like,
Hmm.
anyway, I knew it could be a disaster if I stopped.
Yeah.
And I stopped and it was a lot better. And
Hmm.
again, just like my first story I told, where it was like there was a reality where like he could have never got on board and he could have never been
Hmm.
able to support me. And same thing with this
Yeah.
situation where it was like he could have just like fully slacked off and got nothing done. And then and maybe everything he did do was like horribly unaesthetic and like killed my soul. And like I just had to like be like, okay, that could literally be what happens, and then we'll figure that out then. But it
Yeah.
wasn't. So that was good. Thank you. But like
Hmm.
that was very interesting like year or so for us to navigate.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that's such a thing, like for women too, that are just like driven, like I know something that I think about from time to time like in my like in just like in my last relationship versus like now just because of all the just the personal growth like on my end since then. But I remember like literally in my last home that I decorated the whole thing like pretty much. And it was like you could see me like in the home but you couldn't really see like my last partner. I
Right.
remember and there was like this passiveness on his end, but I think that like we kind of co-created that dynamic where it's like I felt really I liked being in control. I liked having control because it made my control freak like feel better. um and
Right.
like, but in time, like I remember just like not really liking the other parts of the dynamic that came with, right? Where it's like um, like I think driven women, even if they maybe don't admit it, maybe, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but it's like they secretly want like someone more dominant and like, someone who can take charge, but it's like someone that you trust and like feel safe with to do that. Like it's like if they're going to take that initiative, it's going to go well versus like, oh, if they take that initiative, like are they just going to be playing video games all day? And I feel like you spoke to something so well that like I've seen a lot with women that I've worked with and just like my own experiences too, where it's like men tend to, and especially like when a man like cares about you and loves you and you leave room for him to, like, not only does he infuse his energy into the vision, but it's like he's sensitive to your needs and your feelings too. And it ends up being this thing where it's like, damn, dang, like, this was actually better than I thought it could have been. And like you brought in this
Yeah.
energy and this thing to this project or whatever it is that like I wouldn't have even thought of. And like, I'm benefiting from it. Like that feminine surrender where it's like sometimes like when my partner like suggests something, if I like feel a little like, oh, I don't know about that. Like I take it as like a challenge to be like, is he like seeing something that like would actually benefit me in a that's like a bit of like
Yeah.
a surprise, like
Yeah.
and allowing him to like take that charge and like like expanded by it and like be grateful for it and it sounds like you just like very naturally like evolved into that with Frankie, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. No, it's been really, really good. Like truly, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, if we keep operating like this, like it really wouldn't work. Like we both would
Yeah.
just end up like miserable because I'm trying to like control every single thing and then he feels
Hmm.
controlled in every single thing. And neither
Yeah.
of us were benefiting from that. I mean, I'm sure internally and like subconsciously, sure, like we could go there, but like human on the outside, like neither of us were benefiting from it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I love everything you just said. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Something I will say, and like, I'm curious of like your thoughts on this, but I feel like something that I've seen with women, like once they become like real, like just like significant earners, like talking like multiple six figures, seven figures, multiple seven figures, like a year. It's like women start to like not care so much about like what a man makes because it's like you're making like so much that it's like, hey, like we're good regardless. But it's like you still have to feel like I feel like no matter how much like a woman earns, like you still have to feel like this like primal safety and respect for your partner. And like also to feel like in like especially like in co-creating a life together, you have to feel like a healthy, even energy exchange of some sort, like versus it feeling like, oh yeah, like the husband is just like, chilling and playing video games all day or whatever. But I'm curious like what you've seen with women like when like just in clients that you've had if you can speak to this just how relevant for higher earning women it is for like their partner, their man, their woman to earn as much as they do.
No, I think you're spot on. Like that becomes a lot less important, but you had mentioned this earlier and this is a really common topic of like the mental load. Like I think that's when resentment I'll notice when women just start going into multi six figures, that's a common conversation of like, I'm worried I'll be resentful if I'm making more money. I'm worried I'll be resentful if I'm the one paying the bills. Or, so many people have like privately DM'd me and been like, I don't mean this rudely at all, but like, I don't know if I could like be the one paying for date night or for the vacations or like whatever,
Hmm.
which I so get. And I've talked to many clients about that when they're like first kind of like stepping into it. Um, Honestly, that never bothered me, but I think it really is because of that, like, when I have felt resentful, it's been more so like mental load. And then
Yeah.
again, like when I've let go of the mental load and like had him carry more of it, then I haven't been resentful. But I also like, I think the thing is like, I have just very like, I don't know. For me, like I just knew that whatever relationship I was going to have was going to be like healthy, happy. Like I felt like I got enough of the toxic in my childhood.
Yeah.
I felt very unwilling. Like I was talking to my sister on FaceTime about this last night. Like she's having some friend issues. I had a friend thing come up. And it's like this dynamic of like you just don't say anything. It's like all these little things add up and then you're like, I need to cut off the friendship. What am I going to say? How do I do this? Do I tell them why? Do I not? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like and I was telling her that I'm like the issue is you just let it build up, build up, build up. Like we never just say like, "Oh, hey, I didn't like that comment you made to me." Or like I didn't like how that dynamic was, you know? I was like the only person I will do that with is Frankie because I love him. And like it might be sometimes a bit much,
Mhm.
but like I'm very quick to be like, "Hey, like I don't that's doesn't work for me. I don't like that." But also
Mhm.
like he fully has the option to like, "Okay, yeah, I get that," or like, "No." You know?
Mhm.
And like I feel like you get this because you kind of had said this earlier too, like the co-creation in it as well. Like I'm taking, it's not like you did this and it's completely you. It's like a lot of the time I'll be like, I can feel there's like a dynamic that's like making you do this. I don't know, or maybe I do know what I've been doing to like make you feel like that's how you have to like respond to me or how you have to act or whatever. But like, can we just like not, like, can we reset with that?
Mhm.
Like, and can you tell me if
Yeah.
there's something on my part, like, that'll make you feel like you can show up differently? And we just like both clean it up. But I know that maybe a lot of relationships that wouldn't happen. And what's
Mhm.
really hard to watch is like somebody stay in that for so long because it's like the friendship issue, but like way more extreme. It's just like so soul sucking. And like eventually the only thing you have left to do is like leave. But it goes back to our very first conversation today of like, it just kills their confidence more and
Yeah.
more and more and more. So then they're like, even though they have more reasons to leave, they're so much less likely to leave because it's like, well, now they have no confidence left.
Mhm.
Like, and it's so sad to see, like, and then women start to feel like they deserve that or whatever.
Mhm.
I feel like there was
Yeah.
like a much lighter thing that I was going to say, but that's what came out.
Yeah, I mean, no, like it's perfect because I do want to get into that as well. And one thing that I will say before we kind of teeter into that, but yeah, because I have so many things to say, but and that I want your take on, but with that. But I think that it's like something that I've found for me personally is that like in the conversation of like, who like how relevant is it that like your partner like how much they earn and I agree with you. There's like a big factor like at a certain income where it's like mental load and, you know, like I know for me, like when I've done a lot of like feminine energy work with women who are in like long-term relationships, like 5 years, 7 years, 10 years plus like relationships, it's like there's a lot of that resentment where it's like they're often paying for a lot of stuff and also feeling really under supported day to day. But then like when we dig a little deeper, there's like these patterns where it's like they are kind of being like they're kind of cutting their man down a bit, right? In the way that they communicate. Like they're talking down to him. They're being very critical. They're being very controlling. They're not letting him help, in a lot of ways. And it's become this like kind of calcified dynamic, which can change, but it's like, and it's like you almost have been doing it for so long that it's like you can't see that like you kind of have co-created that with him, or her or them, right? Um, and then it's like when you actually like start to what I compare it to, not that I've ever had a kid, but I talk about what something that I've been saying to some recent clients in long-term relationships. I'm like you're potty training your relationship right now. Like some people you can do that in the very beginning of a dynamic, like in the dating phase, but it's like when you're really with someone long enough, like like I feel like everybody, if you've been with someone at least 7 years, like there's like a 7-year itch, as they say.
Yeah.
And it's like, in those long-term relationships, like I feel like eventually like you do kind of have to like be able to put in the work to like evolve your dynamic because it's like you've often changed a lot. Like your circumstances have changed and same thing with your partner, right? And so it's like because that's life. Like you grow, like time passes and you're like not exactly the same. And like you have different circumstances and a different environment, like different home, a farm now, a weird barn, like that you didn't even know was there, or whatever it is. And it's like, you know, yeah. And it's like you can, but I just feel like at the end of the day, like a woman, like in my experience, like she has to, it's not about like what he earns or doesn't earn to an extent at a certain point, but she does have to feel respect. Like she does have to feel respect for him and like safety like with him in that way. And like if she, and I just have to throw this out there for anybody listening, if you are feeling like you don't respect your man and like you're like, "Oh man, this is like hitting home." And like I feel resentful and I don't feel respect. Like definitely reflect. Like reflect on some of like the deeper dynamics of like what has led to that and like where that started and like where maybe you can give up some of that mental load like in on purpose and without being like because I feel like sometimes it's like people can get really feel really justified in their resentment and like disrespect like in a relationship where it's like, well, I've been paying for everything for this many years and like, so I like feel entitled to like talk to my partner like I'm their mother and like if they didn't act like a little boy then I wouldn't have to be their mother. It's like
Yeah.
you gotta clean up your side of the street, like be the partner you wish to be in this world. That's not
Right. And
that's a
like,
Gianna original quote.
yeah. And it's like, you don't, come on. Like, that is not how you want to need to be in your relationship
Yeah.
forever.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like, I just wanted to say this too on this topic. Like, letting them, like, what is the mental load that's taking up? There's so many things for me, like, since having kids where it's been, I just, like you said, I automatically took it on. Like, I have to do this. I have to control this. I have to, and there's so many things. There are things that are important. It's been interesting. There's some things that are really important, especially with like the kids, where it's like, I am their mom. I know this is what I want for them. I know this is how I want to do it. Not that he like disagrees, but like I'm willing to hold that mental load and be kind of like in control and in charge of that. But there's so many other things where it's like just as an example, like we have our nanny and that I was like I had to interview the nannies. I had to hire the nannies. I had to do all the communication with the nannies. I did all the payroll for the nanny. I did like everything and it just was like a lot. And
Yeah.
then now if I notice something like recently, we're not like anti-screen time, but it was like it just suddenly escalated to where I was like our kids are watching TV like all day. Like what is going
Hmm.
on? And so
Yeah.
but anyway, I could go into like, but we didn't set rules for that. And anyway, but I just like told him, like, do you agree? Like, I don't like that. Do you agree? And I was like, can you handle that? And so like anything like with like the childcare situation, like he has all those conversations, which I love because I hate having those kinds of conversations. And it was giving him control too. And like, can you come up with a limit? Like, can you think about that for me? And like, can you communicate to that with her? I didn't even have to ask all those questions because like now he just gets it. I'm just like, can you handle that? He's
Hmm.
like, yes. And then I just noticed that they were never watching TV at all. And I was like, did you handle that? And he's like, yes. I'm like, thank you. I can tell. And same thing like with date night. It used to we have a scheduled date night because we need childcare. So
Yeah.
it used to be like he would come into the room after he was done outside, get ready, and then I would go into the room and be like, "Well, where are we gonna go?" And I'd be like looking up places. What are we gonna do? And like now I'm just like, "Okay, I'm ready." And like I just see where we end up, and I don't take a wallet. I don't like. I'm just like that's like it's so important to me to have that time where I can feel like I'm just like going. And of course, if I'm like, okay, I really want to go to this restaurant and get this meal and like have this drink, like I know it, like then I'll just say that. Like that's what I want to
Yeah.
do. And he appreciates that. But most of the time I'm just like, I'm just in the car, like no money, no nothing. And I'm like, I have no idea where we're going. And he's just
Hmm.
driving. And it's just those things where it's like, okay, I feel a lot lighter, like the more of that I have in my life,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's definitely like I feel like when you're making that switch to be like more like quote unquote in the feminine in a relationship, it really is like those little things where it's like, okay, like I'm not gonna rush to do the dishes because I asked him to do it. And so like
Yeah.
I'm gonna like stop like focusing on it in my head like so hard and I'm gonna like redirect my energy the way I would if I knew he got this, and
Yeah.
like instead of like hovering, and like energetically hovering, right? And like I'm gonna do that or like, for a date night, like I'm going to let my man get this one. I'm gonna let him plan it. I'm going to when it comes to decorating or whatever, like I'm going to be more open to his vision, to his like thing, right? And it's like it feels so it's like so healing for like in my opinion and experience like the women who especially like and I feel like this is more of a thing with entrepreneurial women maybe, but it's like, that grit and that drive and that like craftiness that's like that makes you successful isn't necessarily like the thing that makes your relationship thrive and at least in terms of like polarity dynamics or like
Right.
um and so it's like being able to like give up that control is so healing, like just feeling that feeling of like like I don't even like have to look both ways when crossing the street with my partner,
Right.
versus like that's a very trust litmus test. I mean, obviously, be careful, but if
Right.
you were to cross the street with your partner, like could you not look both ways? Like
Right.
do you know that they would? Like do you trust
Right.
their ability to like see all the things or do you feel like you have to do it? I don't know. That's
No,
something that I've played with
no, I
personally.
totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not
Yeah.
agree with that more. Like it's just like the best feeling. And when you are in a different place with money, like you were saying, like it just those things, it doesn't really matter to me that I'm paying the electric bill or something. It's like,
Hmm.
and I'm grateful for that. Like money flows in, but it's everything else
Yeah.
where the resentment builds up. Even recently, like with Colton, who's about to turn 2, which is crazy. It's like
That is
he,
crazy.
there's like
So cute.
he was just born. What? How did that happen? But
Yeah.
there's like sleep regressions and stuff with little ones. And so he's like awful right now, awful with bed.
Oh
I'm like
no.
to the point, like, and I'm just like that. Like, I think all moms have their things. And for me, like, even in the newborn phase, it was like that nighttime, like nursing them to sleep and like knowing you have the whole night ahead of you getting up. That's just so daunting. And so I love putting them to bed because I love cuddling them and like I love that part. But when it gets like that, I'm like, okay, can you figure this out? Like, can you? Because he's not like moms. This is my experience. Like, I feel like moms just have this like when I went through the newborn phase, it's like you're always on call. Like you feel it. It's like they're you feel them, It's
Yeah.
heavy on you. But like for dads, it's so different. I mean, in my experience, like he's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever, I'll lay with him for 2 hours if that's what it takes. Like he doesn't care. So I'm like, even knowing that, because I mean, this is even just in the last couple weeks. Like I noticed myself laying there with Colton. He's not going to bed. He's kicking me in the face. Like, 'cause
Mhm.
I don't know. That's why what he's gonna do because he's not sleeping. And I was like starting to notice myself be annoyed with Frankie, even though like I asked for no help. He had no clue what was going on. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't have to deal with any of this stuff like in my head. And I was like, okay, wait, what if I asked him to help? And then I was like, well, no, I want to do it because I want to lay with him. I'm like, okay, so Taylor, this is you. And then I asked
Yeah.
him to handle it. And I just like went outside and sat in like quiet and peace. And I was like, oh, you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's such a
Game
thing
changer.
too. Yeah. Like this is something me and my sister have talked about since she had my nephew, where it's like they like that this it is a thing for a mom where it's like a biological thing where it's like you're like
Yeah.
I have to be like on call, like I have to be the one to like, oh, he's not taking the bottle, like well then I'm needed, or whatever, right? And so it's so that like a woman like especially like once you have kids like has to be so supported and has to be supported properly, otherwise it is just it's a lot. And I'm not speaking from firsthand experience, but I'm speaking from, and this is one of the reasons why I don't have kids at this point in time, and maybe I will down the road, but like
Yeah.
it's a big deal, it's such a big deal. So I'm grateful that you spoke to that because I know I'm sure a lot of women will relate when they listen to this, but I want to make sure we get to something else that's a bit like heavier, but I think is so important. I want to touch on toxic relationships. So like thinking of, and again, like I know that I feel like you were disclaimer here, but like I know that you know a lot about these kinds of things regardless, but like when you think of like women that you've worked with who have dated someone or been married to someone like while running a business who is like abusive, like verbally, emotionally, like physically, struggles with substance abuse, is a like chronic cheater, or like kind of displays characteristics of like narcissism, right? Like narcissistic abuse, there's often like, love bombing and then like, those like weird, slimy comments that like really chip away at a woman's confidence. And then like, just get in her head and like gaslight her and get her into this like weird emotional psychological cycle where she's questioning herself, feeling like she's always doing something wrong and like she's not enough and she's the problem and she sucks and she's unlovable, right? And like these really
Yeah.
big, yeah, like these really big like deep triggers where it's like, how can I even think about like planning my next launch when I'm like grappling with this existential feeling that I had in my childhood where like I'm just completely unlovable and this person was right and like what's the point? Or like, my partner just like is sabotaging me while I'm like having a big launch or I have like a big public speaking gig and like the night before they kept me up all night like yelling at me, or and then like divorce and like, there was no prenup, oopsies, and like my partner like, was trying to like take my business or I'm just very curious, like anything that you feel called to speak to in terms of that, of like a woman who is ambitious and successful but has found herself in a toxic relationship of some kind or marriage.
The hardest thing with that I've seen from the outside is that, again, I said this earlier, like to me, the red flag in a friend, in a peer, in a client is like, the conversations where it's like, oh, we're really good right now. And so then they're really happy, or like, he said this last night, and then they're just like drowning in it. It's like, that to me is always a red flag. But the other thing that's really hard to witness this is a lot of the time, if not almost all the time, the woman really does feel like she's at fault. And that's a big red flag that I'll hear in people. And like it's not hard to say, but it's interesting because in the rest of this conversation, we're like, yeah, like take responsibility, like look at your side of the street, like where are you, like it's a co-creation. But there's just some shit that's like unacceptable. And then when you're like, well, like, yeah, he's screaming at you all night, whether you have something the next day or not, it's like, it just breaks my heart to hear somebody be like, well, yeah, but I did like say this or do this, and a lot of the time it is connected to money. It's like, yeah, well, like I have been in a dip. So like that probably is stressful for him. Or I'm like,
Ugh.
well, then he needs to grow the fuck up if that's so
Yeah.
stressful for
He
him and
needs
like
to
makes
man up,
good money.
Jesus. Yeah.
Like, yeah, or like I've just been really distracted and I haven't like been doing the things I usually do. Like that to me is just a part of like partnership and marriage is like I know there's times where Frankie is just like off and he's not himself and he's not getting the things done that he normally would. And he's so supportive of me in that as well. It's like, and that's also goes into the trust. Like, I know you're going to get your shit together. I know you need time to rest. I know you're going to like get back to yourself. And he supported me through a lot of that. But I guess like that's what I feel called to say is there's a time and place to take responsibility. And then there's another thing where it's like, and this is just kind of coming through where it's like, but flip it. Like, so if he did that, would you treat him like that? Right? Like
Yeah.
there's been many things in my marriage where it's been like, yeah, well, I guess if he was giving me to-do lists every single day and monitoring my progress on all the action items, I would probably be
Yeah.
kind of resentful and annoyed at him too.
Yeah.
Okay. But if he was having trouble in his career or if he wasn't doing as much around the house, like would I scream at him all night or would I like call him horrible names or whatever it might be? Like, no. Like, I think
Mhm.
that's when you can really tell very quickly, like, yeah, that's not acceptable.
Mhm. Yeah. Amen. I mean, and that's such a good like check in to be like, okay, if the roles were reversed, like, would I do that? And oftentimes, like, the answer is no, right? But, I will say there's like this metaphor that's used so often with like abusive and toxic relationships where it's like a frog in boiling water. Like, if you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps right out. But if you put it in room temp and like slowly turn up the dial and like it'll be boiling and be like, what the hell? How did I get here? I thought I would never end up in this
Yeah.
position, right? And it's like, it's those gradual things where it's like, that's another thing that I just really want to say is like, busy, ambitious women, like, never be so busy that like the person that you chose to spend your life with ends up being like your biggest your biggest hater, your worst freaking nightmare. And it happened gradually because it's like there was something that wasn't being addressed or tended to that was like slowly creeping up on you. Like that is just so important. And I know how tempting it is, like when you're passionate to just like work, work, work and like it let things slide, like justify, make excuses. But like that's the stuff that like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, once kids are involved, like becomes so terrible and messy.
That's that's the thing I've heard a few women say too is like, and I don't even have time to talk to him about it. I don't even have time to address it. Yeah, it's like that's exactly what you're saying. It's like you have to make time to clean that stuff up because it escalates and escalates and it even though you're and we know this even in like less serious things. It's like you can pour 8 hours a day, 10, 12 hours a day into your business or your career and it's never going to hold a candle to pouring time in, even if it's a third of the time, a fourth, a fifth of the time when you're like lit up and passionate and actually inspired and like, and so it's like, yeah, I get it. You have to work and you have to provide and you have to, but like exactly what you're saying. It's like it will hit a point where it's like unavoidable.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, a freaking men. Okay, so before we hop off here, because I know you have to get going, is there any like I would just be like anything that you feel called to say and or anything, and also just like what do you feel like ambitious business owners, women in particular, need in a relationship? Anything that you just feel called to say?
I mean, it's kind of what I was saying before, where I'm like, I
Yeah.
think if you are a really ambitious woman, then you need this is my opinion. I think there's so many different partner dynamics available, just to be clear. But what I'm so grateful to have is like somebody who fully lets me be in the spotlight and the ambitious one and like supports it and cheers it on, like does not get triggered by my maybe there's three things. Does not get triggered by my success. Like actually is like keep go like let's keep going. Like and and now as he's believed in me more, it really did hit this. It was like he thinks I'm in La La Land. He doesn't believe in me at all. He's starting to get it. And now we're at a point where I'll be like, I think I made a mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in this really tough spot. And he's like, I'm not, I mean, he'll emotionally support me through it, but he's like, you're fine. Like, I'm not worried about you at all. Like, you come back from every single thing every single time. Like, that's
Mhm.
so helpful. Like, somebody who can like support you in that way. I also think if you're an entrepreneur and your partner isn't, which is the situation I'm in, because Frankie did have a very successful career, but he was working for a company. It is
Mhm.
just a different mindset. He was on a great salary, but what's really helpful, because I've heard this in other people's relationships, is he likes money. He likes nice things, but he's not stressed about like he trusts me to be responsible with my money, but like he doesn't really care about like what I'm investing or how much I'm spending on the business or like that he doesn't like he's not controlling about money. That's a dynamic I was used to growing up. Like
Mhm.
very controlling about money. Money's a really big deal. Everything you spend is just this huge deal. Like money started a lot of fights in my household. So I feel like I have freedom with money, which is something that like I wanted and has
Mhm.
actually been helpful. And I'm like, what was the third one? And like maybe acts of service, love language, but at least at a minimum, like somebody who finds joy in like providing for you in other ways and like making your life easier, taking things off your plate, solving problems before you knew they existed. Like I feel like sometimes Frankie is just like somebody just like waiting for me to realize that he even like supported me in some way. Like I'll like realize something like even little things like buying my favorite ice cream at the store like randomly and then I'll open the freezer and he'll be like standing in the kitchen like like he wants to
Aw.
see me see it like and that's just like a very tiny tiny example but like I so appreciate that about him so much as I know that he even right now I could guarantee he has done things for me today or the past week or past weeks that like I haven't even recognized yet. Like I have no clue he's done
Mhm.
them and he's just like waiting for me to realize like
Mhm.
with this like joyful anticipation. Like that I think those things have made me like feel very free, very loved, very supported and not resentful.
Mhm. I
And I
love
wish
all
that
of
for
that.
every woman who's like similar to me in her like ambitions and career and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I love all of that so much. And like, first of all, thank you for coming on here today and just like speaking to your experiences, like personally and with clients. And just like, this one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because it's like this conversation is so nuanced and you brought the nuance and the clarification in the details. So I really appreciate it. And thank you guys and for listening as well. And like, seriously, go check out Taylor's stuff. She's the best. Like honestly, Taylor really helped me like create a very solid foundation in my business that I still reference to this day that was just invaluable. So, highly recommend checking her out. And we will link people to the places in the show notes and all of that. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. So if there's any
Thank
final thoughts
you.
you want to say, bye or anything like that.
No, perfect. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Of course, of course. Okay. Bye. Okay, you guys. So taking the glasses off. We're getting serious. We're taking the glasses off. But no. So Taylor had to run, but I wanted to really like extra emphasize a few points that she shared and that we touched on. Because I just think it's really important. And like for women who are just ambitious and higher earning, like I really like, and I've seen this a lot with clients behind the scenes who make like multiple six figures, seven figures, multiple seven figures a year. And like the thing is, it's like there's going to be like I feel like sometimes it's like we judge and we think that it's like, if our partner, like for me personally, like in my romantic life, I don't care like if my partner earns more than I do, but I like for them to earn within range of me. And that's not going to be true for every like ambitious woman. For me personally, like I just in the dynamic that I want, like I like when a man can contribute financially. Um, but that's just my preference, right? And so but I think whatever your preferences are, like just know that they are so valid and you're allowed. And also, like at the end of the day, like the most important thing in a dynamic, because the reality is like people go through shit and like there's going to be seasons and there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, like when you are with someone long enough. And like when you are with someone 5 years, 10 years, like over a lifetime, right? Like there might be times where it's like you're on cloud nine financially, and there might be times where it's like you're a little lower, right? And like vice versa. And so it's like the biggest thing for women who are higher earning, right? When traditionally, like back in way back when patriarchal stuff, like 1950s, before women could do all that they can do now, right? Traditionally, it's like men, that's how men provided value. And I think that it's like if you are a woman who's higher earning, who's ambitious. And but it's like, you might be really driven in your career, right? Like I am. I'm like podcasting, clients, launching, selling, right? All the things. But then it's like in your personal romantic life, it's like you want to feel like in the quote unquote feminine energy. You want your partner to like you want to be with someone that you feel safe with, that you feel like is like a man, or like a masculine, whatever. And the thing is like you have to let that in. Like you have to let that in. And I just extra want to emphasize, like, if you are in a relationship where it's like you're feeling that resentment, like absolutely check in because it's like something that I've seen in long-term relationships is that over time, like a masculine man can get like emasculated. And I love this quote that I heard at like somewhere at some point. It's like men are sensitive, but not in the way that like women are sensitive. We're generalizing here, right? But it's like they're like a tuning fork, right? So I believe like masculine men, like that masculine instinct to protect and provide, which isn't necessarily just through like financial like provision, but that is one way and it can be. But it's like, because there's so many different dynamics and situations out there, but it's like he has that instinct to want to be attuned to you and your needs and like provide and protect like you and your kids if you have them or will have them, right? And so it's like the thing is like a masculine energy it takes charge, right? And so if you as a woman are being controlling, right? And like and in particular like in your communication style, this is why like I'm a big huge believer in feminine communication because feminine communication is more expressive versus like finger waggy bossy, like going into the role of like being the boss or like their mother and like controlling and criticizing, right? Which doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily how a mother is, but like you get my point. Hopefully. um and it's like when you can start to change the dynamic and like heal the dynamic, right? Which requires you to kind of like deal with your triggers, right? Because a lot of the times it's like when we do try to control and we feel resentful, there's a lack of emotional regulation happening on our part where it's like, I don't want to give up control because when I give up control, like all these big feelings come up that are difficult, like that it's like, what if they let me down? What if they disappoint me? What if they don't do it right? Right. And so you continue to put yourself in a role where you're overexerting yourself and overextending yourself because you don't want to give up control, because you don't want to have to feel those feelings. When it's like, if you did feel that feeling, right? If like, God forbid your partner like didn't do the dishes perfectly, like it actually wouldn't be the end of the world. And, you would actually get so much more energy back if you were willing to have that adjustment period of like, hey, like he didn't do the dishes exactly the way that I like right away, but like I'm going to feminine communicate in a way with him that's like, hey, like I actually, just so you know, like with the dishes, like I really like this and this makes me like feel this way when you do it this way. Like I really love this. It feels so clean, it feels so nice or whatever, right? Versus like, oh, like he can never do anything right. Right? Like it's a completely different energy. And like what I will say, even just from like male clients that I've had, and also the women like the thousands of women I've worked with for over like 10 plus years now, men are very like men will shut down or butt heads with you when you are critical, right? And so it's like it's emasculating. It's emasculation. So it's like if you find yourself feeling like, oh, like I want my man to be more of a man, like that is something that you should really be aware of. And I also want to make another note on the like abusive relationship front where excuse me, where it's like the frog in boiling water analogy that we touched on with Taylor, because it's like your relationship is either going to add to your life or it's going to take away from it. And of course, there's nuance, there's seasons, there's rough patches that people go through in a relationship. And like with two people who care about each other and who are willing to look in the mirror, you can get through most anything as long as you're compatible, right? And have a similar trajectory and similar values, right? But it's like something to be so mindful of, like as a successful woman, is like you have to protect yourself from like two kinds of men, like two kinds of unhealthy masculine energies. And one is like the weaponized incompetence man who's like so either shut down and like emasculated. And this doesn't necessarily have to do with your relationship. He might have been emasculated before you ever got together. Like he might have been emasculated from childhood, from his relationship to his mother. And he tends to be very passive with women, a very yes man, people pleaser, like keeps the peace, doesn't have a real opinion, doesn't actually deal with conflict, right? But it's like, and because that is going to add to your mental load so much, especially if you tend to pick up the slack unconsciously and feel more comfortable being in control, that will wear on you. That, like, I've worked with so many women that are successful, and it's like, they're like, yeah, like I have to make, I'm running the business, I'm making all this money, I'm doing all this. And then it's like, and then I have to go home and clean. And then I have to go home and, like deal with the house cleaner and making sure that they did their thing. And then I take the lead with the kids as well. That is overfunctioning. That is overfunctioning. That is what I call being 1.5 humans, right? And you're not meant to be 1.5 or 2 humans. You're meant to be one. You're meant to have a partner. You're meant to have someone who makes you feel supported. And like when you are properly supported in your romantic relationship, you will be healthier, you will be happier, you will have a better sex life, right? Because nothing kills a sex life more than like resenting the hell out of your partner and not respecting them and like feeling like they're the kind of person who's not like if your man is kind of like one of those people that's like, yeah, yeah, whatever, like playing video games, like just disconnected and tuned out from you, their masculine instinct has been dulled, whether partially because of the relationship, the co-creation of the relationship, or his own experiences. But it's like what you can do is like when you get into your feminine energy and like you clean up your side of the street, you give your man the best chance to like strengthen that masculine instinct again, where he is attuned to you like that tuning fork, right? He can anticipate your needs. And he happily meets them, right? Like what we were talking about with Taylor, right? Like I got you your favorite ice cream or whatever it is, right? And so it's like you deserve to have that in your life and you can, okay? And I will say like with women that I've worked with over the years, like they in those long-term relationships, once they do start to do that feminine energy work, that does that 9 times out of 10, like their relationship, their long-term relationship gets so much better. Their partner starts stepping up more, being more attuned to them, and their needs, starts being more ambitious in their career. And it's your energy is powerful. Like your energy does, you're not responsible for your partner and their choices, but it has such a big impact, just like your partner's energy has an impact on you, right? Um, for better or for worse. So and that like if you do want help with that, I do have like a 6-week one-on-one intensive that is going to be really good for that, for honestly both of these things. Called Feminine Magic. I will also link that too. You can check it out. But I also want to touch on the element of a toxic relationship because it's like that's the other kind of person that like relationship that you have to protect yourself from. And there is like nuance to things, sure. But I really, really love what Taylor said when she talked about um like flip it and reverse it, right? Because it's like sometimes like when there is gaslighting, when there is emotional abuse, right? It can feel a bit more like blatant and black and white when there's physical abuse or there's cheating or and maybe not even so, like because, when you are someone who takes responsibility for cleaning up your side of the street and you really believe relationships are a co-creation, like that's a really powerful perspective, but also there's a shadow side to that where it's like, did I do something wrong? Like, how is this my fault? And, at the end of the day, like people's choices are theirs and it's a reflection. Like your character shouldn't be defined by like a your character is about who you choose to be. There's like a Taylor Swift lyric that's coming in my mind. But it's like um I think it's the song and the smallest man who ever lived. Shout out to my Swifties, but like it's you are what you did. You are what you did. And the impact and the choices that you make define you, at least in the eyes of others. And you can heal and you can make amends and you can forgive and you can heal, and especially if you've been that person, right? Like I've worked with women like that too, and I think that to completely talk about the conversation as if women are always the victims, it's just not accurate or true either. In relationships where it's like women can have like verbally abusive tendencies as well, or physical or emotional, like stray, right? And at least in monogamous situations, because some people are polyamorous and all the things, right? But it's so important. It's just so important because it's like to be mindful of the gradual the gradual elements of like to not sweep under the rug like the time that your partner gets kind of triggered by your success, or when your partner is insensitive to your boundaries or your needs, right? Or when your partner feels justified in calling you names, or being really like exploding on you, right? Or putting their hands on you in some way, or um stonewalling you, right? Like that's a thing that people do that is emotional abuse in a relationship too, where it's like, oh, you upset me, so I go like I completely shut down on you and withdraw. And there's something to be said about how when it's an unconscious choice, right? Where it's like their nervous system is overstimulated. And so they're like, like they probably have more of an avoidant attachment style, a dismissive avoidant attachment style. And so they shut down and they withdraw. Um, but it also too, like part of repair in a relationship requires like repair and communication and, you know, communication, right? And so when someone shuts down communication, whether intentionally or not, there is still an impact on that, like on the relationship and on you and on the partner, right? Because it's like there's a wall. There's not repair, there's not healing, there's not care, there's a wall, right? And so there's something to be said about like how as a woman, like you want to create enough like individuation and space and detachment from the relationship where it's like, I can still take care of myself. I can still thrive. I can still show up for my business or whatever. Like even if my partner is acting not the healthiest, right? And I can acknowledge my boundaries and my standards and my lines, but at the same time, I know that like I deserve better than that. Like I deserve a relationship that has emotional stability, right? Not just practical stability, but emotional stability. Because if you can't count on your relationship to be emotionally consistent, that is going to be a drain and a distraction, right? And so whether it's name calling, whether it's stonewalling, or even gaslighting, right? These kinds of things. I have seen women get so, like their careers and their businesses get so rocked by this stuff. And so it's really, really, really important that you take care of yourself, you protect yourself, and if you're single, you attract in the right partner. And that part of that is about you being the right partner first, but then also having like those healthy standards and boundaries in place, learning how to be in the feminine energy in dating and in long-term relationships. And when you do that, you will set yourself up to have the best chance to be with a really great partner long term that supports your success, that supports your dreams, that like is probably having their own alongside of you or their own versions of them, their dreams alongside of you as well. And you get to have a really beautiful life because at the end of the day, relationships, something that I believe and I teach around relationships and partnerships is being in a union. Like when you're in a union, you go further together faster, where it's like you become, think Transformers or something, like two Transformers coming together into a super being, where it's like on your own, you're great, you're complete, you're whole, like you're awesome. But it's like when you come together, slay, right? Like you do so much more, right? And there's so much more richness and joy and depth and like, value and growth and accomplishment together than solo, right? But that is only when it is with a healthy partner and you're a healthy partner and you create a healthy relationship dynamic that is complementary and supportive. Because if you're not a healthy partner, if you're not with a healthy partner, if your dynamic is off, it's going to feel like an ankle weight, and there's going to be resentment, there's going to be hurt, there's going to be probably toxicity, right? And it does not have to be that way. So if you are struggling with any of those things and you want some support, feel free to reach out because I have different offers and different offerings at different price points that can support you on that journey because you deserve more. You deserve to have your cake and eat it too. You deserve to have your success. You deserve to have your love. You deserve to have your sanity, your peace, your energy be so nurtured and taken care of. Okay. So reach out if you need anything. I will also link some things in the comments or show notes. Um, in particular, feminine magic. But yeah. Okay, you guys, thank you for listening. I would love to know. Feel free to DM me or Taylor. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. Leave any comments that you have. But I would just feel free to reach out because and especially if this episode just really resonated with you, it would mean the absolute world. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.